So welcome everybody to the Cooperative City in Quarantine, episode 3. So once again, we're hosting you from all around Europe, myself and Daniela Patti from Rome in my little garden, and Bahanur Nazia. Where are you, Bahanur?
1 second. I'm in Vienna, in my home with the kids, and yeah, I will co-moderate with you from Vienna.
So we're very, very happy to have you with us today. So as you might have seen from the communication, the episode for today is focusing on culture. And we're very, very happy to be in the Cooperative City in Quarantine, dealing with what is happening to the cultural sector in this moment. It's not only an issue of the huge emergency of the COVID now. We know that approximately more than 8 million people are more or less working in Europe in the cultural sector. And the current complete lockdown there has been in most of the countries throughout Europe and worldwide has impacted not all our cities greatly, but the creative sector has been greatly impacted, due also possibly to great lacks of funding over the last years and so on. So the aim of today is to try and understand a little bit what are the main challenges, but also what is ahead of us. How can we try to help our creative communities already now, today, in the conditions they're in? Many of them are already struggling a lot in getting by. And how can we make sure that in the near future, when the quarantine will be over, we learn from this experience in order to also make the most of it? So, very, very welcome. We're very happy to have with us very interesting speakers that will bring us along in a very interesting session for today. So we have, and forgive my pronunciation, all of you, Anikó Erdősi from New York. Hello, Anikó.
Hi.
Very, very welcome.
Thank you.
We also have Fabrizio Barbiero from the city of Turin.
Hello.
Hi, Fabrizio. We still hear you very, very far away, but we're super happy to have you with us.
Thanks for being with us.
Okay, is it maybe just me that doesn't hear Fabrizio? Or do you not hear him?
Can you try once more, Fabrizio?
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Now it's good.
Hear me?
Now it's good.
Okay, I shout. Okay.
Yes, shout. Exactly. Okay, very welcome. And then we're very, very happy to have Nikola and Violante from European Cultural Foundation. Very, very welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hello from Amsterdam.
Hi, from Paris. Thank you for having us.
Yes, we asked some cultural workers and people, creatives all around world, actually, it's not only Europe, to send us a couple of minutes how they are proceeding in their cities, in their countries. And we received quite an amount of videos. Unfortunately, we can't show all of them, but we would like to share a couple of minutes of them. And throughout the week, we will share them on Facebook and also add them in the article on Cooperative City. So you will see the whole length. For the moment, it should give us a little bit content to or input to discuss or inspiration, how it feels on ground.
Hi, from Vienna. My name is Yilmaz. I'm a filmmaker and I'm currently busy making pancakes. Why? Because my children requested pancakes. And any other day of the week, I would have said, no, we have to get to work, we have to get you to kindergarten, but we're stuck at home, so why the hell not? The positive thing is that there is a social safety net, and there is some funding that's available, not only for companies, but also for individuals and cultural workers. They did announce this, so that's good. The difficulty is that we don't really know how to access those funds, and I've been reports that the bureaucracy is really quite overwhelming to deal with. But on the other hand, that doesn't really solve the problem or the issue. And the issue is that we produce, we create, and we want to continue doing that, and we want to continue to contribute to society and the stories that we have to tell and how we express ourselves.
The lockdown because of coronavirus has affected me and my business significantly insofar as I have many jobs that have dropped off. So a significant impact to my business and also to my personal pocket.
I was one of the earliest victims of coronavirus. I started having my first symptoms on 6th of March, and I probably fully recovered around 15th of March. I'm one of the lucky ones, but here, of course, the numbers are getting very high, and when I contracted the disease, it was the last day of our school. There was the decision by the university to extend the spring recess for 1 month because of the coronavirus. There was this decision by the state to close the schools and universities and to continue the online education. So since then, we are in the online education program, more or less like everywhere else. Basically, a lot of artists and cultural workers lost their jobs and incomes in the moment of the crisis, as a lot of art workers, for example me as well, are private entrepreneurs and works project-based mainly. But the big institutions have to face also with new solutions, as they have to keep and at the same time rethink the structures, how they can survive. Of course, the biggest issues are that the normal circumstances, because of the official regulations, are not provided for the live performances and for a lot of programs. So the digital space is coming to the performative space scene more effectively. Now we start to share old and new stuffs with the digital communities, but not only on the local level, but also in the international level. So the culture, as always, I think is a creative field, and it's time to collaborate more than ever. Actually, the artistic community was one of the sectors that have been seeing all their activities cancelled even before the state of emergency was declared. On another hand, is one of the sector with less social protection. Most of the artists work as a freelancer. We call it trabalhadores independentes. And the solutions from the government are really not enough. Artists feel that they don't have already now, immediately, the conditions to survive. In another way, all the conflicts and the problems are been always an inspiration for artists to work their creativity. So in the first day of quarantine, immediately new festivals on the web, live performances, and several other cultural manifestations and movements started to happen. But in another hand, immediately the community was split in different visions, because it brings up the question about how we win and how we earn our money.
The other topic, of course, is the issue of the future. What does the future hold for us? Because, okay, so we receive funding for a few months, or we receive some aid or help or whatnot. But what's going to happen when everything starts running back up? Or will everything start running back up? What is the landscape going to be like? Who will the players be? And how will we have access to funds? And will the funds be limited due to the economic crisis that's heading our way as a result of this pandemic and societies being shut down?
The big point is, after this crisis, how can we jump and change the policies of the sector?
But at the same time, we are all survivors. Anyone who's kind of made a living or managed to live for long in this industry, in the field of culture and arts, we know what difficult times are, and we do know how to get through them. So I guess that would be the positive take. We are trained for this.
So, Anikó, would you like to add more on the situation, the challenges, and so on in New York? We had Ushin explain a bit how she experienced the situation in New York. How is it for you, or how do you observe the situation?
Yes, so from just listening to this short video compilation, the first thing that came to my mind, Daniela's question was, do you see a similar situation in New York as in Europe? So one of the big differences is that we are in the most capitalist context in America. So when it comes to cultural organizations and art and culture in general, it's a very different system than in most European, than in any European countries, I believe. The government has very little support. It's really mostly private philanthropy. And the market is very influential. So nonprofit organizations, for example, much more relying on market dynamic than in Europe. So what happened here in the last couple of weeks is, I believe, in a sense, it's similar to everywhere else. A lot of people got laid off. I mean, if you're only talking about the cultural sector, I mean, obviously the medical is the most urgent, and there is the economical sector. But if we just want to focus on the cultural problems, a lot of people lost their jobs. People who work in the creative industry, most of them are in the so-called gig economy, which is basically performers, artists, that they basically get paid by when they get to perform, musicians, dancers, which is obviously put on hold right now. All the organizations are suffering from small to large. There's a lot of news, you know, from the Metropolitan Opera to the museums, how they are trying to keep up such basic things as the payroll. The big institutions have not started yet to lay off people, but a lot of small cultural organizations, a lot of galleries laid off people in the last 2 weeks. There is basically a lot of artists in New York, the cliches, right? Like you come here, you're a playwright, singer, songwriter, artist, and you're gonna bartend, or you're gonna have some kind of a job to maintain yourself while you're trying to pursue your creative projects. Now that's all gone. So in this sense, artists or creative individuals are actually very vulnerable to this situation, because they work in those industries, the service industry, the hospitality industry, that's completely stalled right now. So basically, practically overnight, this community lost their day-to-day living. There are concerns about paying rents, which is known as very expensive in New York. I would say a lot of nonprofit organizations immediately. What's interesting is New York has a very long history of social organizing, and there was immediately a very strong reaction to that. So small nonprofit organizations started, and sort of grassroots organizations started to act to this directly. But at this point, everyone is feeling the problem, and the more, you know, every day more problem is coming up. So this is the cultural sector.
Thank you, Anikó. Actually, this brings us then, Fabrizio, what do you see in Turin? What is your panoramic from the city council and from your personal point of view?
Yeah, but it's very similar, and it's a very strange situation, and you know, everything is closed, and it's not easy to change cultural content in digital content. So it's not easy to find another market to propose culture. And it's very strange, because this phenomena is like a war, but is not a war because you can't escape from this coronavirus. You have to stay. You have to stop and to stay home. And so this is very strange, no? So and it's so which means that it's not easy to think the future because you don't see alternative, and we have understood that this is not this is a longer situation. Maybe we are talking about 1 year, 2 years. And so it's very difficult for the cultural sector to rethink themselves, no? Because okay, but how can I produce culture if I can stay, I can organize anything in the city? And so that is the point in terms of the vision. And at the same time, they continue to have cost, fixed cost. They have a high fixed cost. And so maybe the institution, they have to pay attention about that, to reduce, to cut immediately the fixed cost.
Mm-hmm.
This is maybe the big issue to talk about it, in order to help them to stay, to remain, to rethink the way to make culture.
Are you already getting a lot of requests then in this direction from the cultural?
Yeah. We have a lot of requests to stop to pay rent from a public and a private institution. The point is that now,
Right.
and so this is not easy for everyone, because we need international national support to do that. It's not just a local decision. It should be a national, international decision to do that.
Right.
Thank you, Fabrizio. We are hearing that in England, Arts Council England is offering help for artists. We see the similar situation also in Austria, in Germany, in many countries. Of course, the situation is a little bit, well, much more dramatic in Italy. How do you perceive it as ECF? You are not only active in Europe, but also in Africa, as much as I know. Nikola and Violante, how do you see the current challenges?
Hi, and thanks for having us here. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of challenges happening, and as we've heard from the experiences, a lot of independent and especially freelancers are struggling with the given situation, which is understandable given the fact that economic impact of COVID is quite apparent, and there will be a spillover effect on the culture as well. When we talk about what's happening and what are kind of the major trends, yes, of course, we do see that there are benefit packages and aid packages set up by member states. And this is something that also happens outside of the EU to a certain degree. Of course, not all member states set up aid packages. For example, Slovakia is still waiting to assess and weigh down on the situation to see what will be the follow-up effect. But we can also see that there are some mechanisms being considered to be put in place in different places. For example, also in Serbia. We can also observe that there's a lot of support and initiatives being launched by different foundations. There's a pooling of resources. There's a very good example of Finnish Cultural Foundation initiative, which pooled resources with the ministry and several foundations to provide assistance as a response to COVID. And of course, there's a lot of local initiatives where organizations and citizens themselves support each other. One of the things that we've seen is that there are implications of the COVID on implementation of both short-term and long-term projects that the organizations are implementing. We can see that there's a lot of delays happening. A lot of activities are moving from physical to digital environments, and this is something that, of course, creates additional setbacks when it comes to financial planning and project implementation, primarily due to the fact that planning and moving activities to digital environment requires more time, more planning, which often requires increased hours that people are working on, and this is something that needs to be compensated for. We are aware that one of the biggest mechanisms, such as the European Commission funds, are showing certain level of flexibility within the bureaucratic limitations that they have, but overall we can see that there is a higher solidarity, and this is something that we really want to encourage further. A higher solidarity between actors in this time of need.
Violante, would you like to add something?
Well, I think it's something that I will also discuss later, but I think that what is interesting, it's to see on the one hand, we're in a moment that, on the one hand, there's a lot of questioning of where is Europe in this time, and where is the EU in this time, in this situation. And on the other hand, we see forms of solidarity and also flexibility from the cultural sector in helping out other sectors or extending their knowledge and expertise to other sectors, which is a cross-border solidarity and is a sort of European solidarity in this sense. So I think I find it interesting to have this sort of paradoxical situation.
Thank you all very much. Oh, sorry, Vanur, go.
In our observation, we find the cultural sector reaching out to all local businesses or people who are vulnerable, who have to entertain kids while having home office and so on. We found a lot of inputs and ideas how this solidarity works informal on volunteering basis, but the main issue is we don't know how long this whole process will last. And the second issue is we don't know how it will be after this all. And the third issue is the maintenance cost, the rent cost, the fixed cost, as Fabrizio mentioned, they are so high. If we use all the money which is remaining to pay those costs, where are the people? How can we support the people to do all this voluntary work? Because that costs also time, efforts, and so on, and also resources in digital means, in content creation, and so on. So, Dani, you wanted to?
Yes, actually, I wanted to say that there's a lot of the main issues that have come across through our speakers, and also the videos that were sent from some people in our community, which was very, very, very good. I would also like to ask the audience if there are any other challenges that they are seeing that are happening in their cities, and also let us know where you are. Drop us a line in the Facebook chat and sort of give us a sign, and let's try. As technology allows us to sort of dialogue, we are trying and experiencing in improving our technological skills along the way. At least I definitely am, because I've never been much of a techie person anyway, for who knows me. At this point, I would like to share with you a second video that brings us forward to, at this point, issues related to what is also ahead of us. I mean, we've spoken about the challenges, but what are also maybe the opportunities, or at least some of the things that are happening on the ground that would be able to be of inspiration to some extent. And we've collected a few, but also for those of you in the audience, please continue sharing with us.
And the National Heritage Lottery Fund have both Two of the main funders in the UK, the Arts Council England and the National Heritage Lottery Fund, have both unlocked to relatively good sums of money to projects that are directly related to the coronavirus crisis, to tackling isolation and loneliness and mental health problems during the coronavirus crisis. And we're seeing really interesting projects coming out of that. As for museums and larger organizations, they are all focusing, if they have collections, obviously we're seeing quite a lot of digitalization of projects and collection. What we are not perhaps seeing as much is individual artists and small collectives and independent artists really coming up with their own solutions and their own creative responses to the crisis.
Culture has 57 member organizations from the whole Croatia, and because we are dealing with cultural policy and we focus on strengthening the position of independent cultural organizations in the cultural sector in general. We did a survey that involved 33 organizations, asking them what the consequences they will feel until the 1st of May. So only until the 1st of May, and the results were really troubling. More than 500 events and activities such as workshops, public events, lectures, educational activities will be cancelled or have been cancelled. They involve more than 900 people, either employees of the organizations or associates, that will not be paid for for that work. More than 1 million euros is invested in those type of activities, and they were foreseeing more than 54,000 people in the role of audience or users. So basically, a big part of those activities are related to European Culture, Capital of Culture, Rijeka 2020, but they apparently are very shocking. We will continue doing this survey, and we sent it to the Ministry of Culture, which has already prescribed some measures, especially concerning freelance artists who don't have any sources of income now, but also other actors in the field, institutions, independent cultural organizations, and so on. Zagreb happened to be hit by a major earthquake last week, and a lot of organizations were affected, not only because they work from home and they can't work from their offices because of coronavirus, but because their offices and their cultural spaces were heavily damaged. Some were mildly damaged, some heavily damaged, but definitely this will affect their work. We suggested 3 types of measures that are concerning directly the funds that the Ministry of Culture provides, then the measures that are concerning the European Social Fund that the Ministry of Culture manages together with other institutions in Croatia, and also the liaison with the local authorities that are also funders of independent cultural organizations.
Happy quarantine, everybody. Bye.
Sorry, it took a while to unmute myself. We received from Tom in Brighton municipality. There are requests to rent freezes, I think, to freeze rents. I think this is a very important initiative that we could do globally, actually. And I wanted to ask what kind of initiatives are in New York, Anikó?
Yeah, thank you for leading up so well. So one of the most important things that happens here is, which affects more people than the culture, just everybody, is that there is a Senate bill already for about 10 days by a New York senator. This is on state level, for a 90-day rent freeze. If this passes, that's going to obviously help a lot of people, and especially those that we mentioned, artists and cultural workers. That would be a 3 months free rent. And if you don't have an income, you don't have to pay rent. You still have a better chance to keep your apartment, to maintain yourself. And if you need to cover your medical costs, because one of the also big difference between New York and most European countries, we don't have free healthcare here. Right, so health insurance and access to health is actually a privilege, an economical privilege in this country. So although with this one you can't really do anything unless you have real difficulties, then they take you to the hospital, otherwise they advise you to stay home. But people have all sorts of medical conditions that's not going to stop just because this is a crisis right now. So the rent freeze is a very important one, and there was a lot of responses from the nonprofit or organizational or like NGOs, nonprofit organizations. The New York Art Foundation has a site that they update daily with a lot of grants, and they have grants that covers illnesses or bereavement cost for artists, for example. There are a lot of private foundations who immediately released funds to certain, for example, there is one I came across with for curators. I was very surprised about that. The Kincaid Family Foundation is administering a new emergency grant for curators specifically working on important projects right now. And they being basically installed. There is, although the federal government really responded very slowly and very poorly to this crisis from the beginning on, they finally released last week federal aid package targeting small businesses. That's also across everything. Obviously, a lot of cultural and art organizations and small businesses will benefit from that. And there are a lot of heartwarming moments when you hear like the conservators and museums donating gloves and masks to hospitals. We got an email yesterday that our art storage that we keep our inventory donated their entire truck float to emergency medical needs. Some big major powerful galleries donating a certain percentage of their online sales to charitable organizations. So, speaking of solidarity and collaboration, I do see that spirit, and New York is very much that spirit. I mean, New York was always, and New Yorkers were always and will be, I guess, very resilient and very resourceful, which is really a good thing, especially in a crisis like that. So, almost hourly we get updates about like the bits of good news, the solutions or the.
We need that as well in this moment.
Oh, very well.
The news is not only about the good news, absolutely. And while we're speaking, we also got quite an active feedback from also some of the audience. So I'll just very quickly share some of the input. So from the Czech Republic, they say that the government gives now a one-time financial support to all freelancers reaching 1,000 euro as immediate help. But obviously the support is requested from the creative, other support is requested from the creative sector, and the Ministry of Culture is working with the cultural actors. So more news from the Czech Republic, I suppose we'll also be waiting for. And from Greece, they tell us that we could start a petition for supporting a culture and artist, as well as co-organizing a digital evening event open to everybody, for example, music, theater, and so on. And we could co-organize something like this to support people that are staying at home and organize initiatives with musicians and so on. So there's a lot of inputs and so on. So thanks a lot for that. And this brings us then also Fabrizio, you mentioned obviously the rents, the freezing of the rents was definitely something that was very supported, and I think everybody agreed on this. Why do you see that there is, I mean, it's difficult for everybody to take action now, and especially for a big organization like a city council that obviously has to go through a series of also bureaucratic and administrative procedures before taking an official decision. But what do you see would be the potential for, where can the city council help the creative sector to survive, to remain vibrant also after the coronavirus? And where do you see that there's the possibility of something that can also remain positive from this experience after? Go on, tell us. You must have the solution, Fabrizio. Otherwise, you wouldn't be the head of social innovation of the city.
I don't have the answer.
What are some of the insights?
I need more time to provide an answer about that. It's Daniela. It's a big challenge. We are not prepared to answer this kind of phenomena. It's quite new. It's very difficult for us. The culture in Torino is economic driver, and so it's not just a problem of cultural activities. It's a very important economic asset, which means a lot of unemployment, the increase in employment, and so on. So for us, it's a really big problem, and now I don't see at the national or regional level nothing about the culture. I see a lot of culture organization try to promote virtual, for example, virtual visit a museum or maybe to share performance and something like that. But now it's very difficult to think about the future. The point, I think, that we will face not just economic crisis, but also a cultural depression. And for me, I think the challenge for the culture is to fight cultural depression, because my fear is at the end of this tragic period, we will have a society very different with no perspective for the future. And the culture would be very important in order to persuade the people to have a positive think about the future and to stay together. And so that's why the culture will play an important role in order to bring the people to stay together in the cities, in the public spaces, because the risk is to continue to live alone at the home after the end of this crisis, because we don't have a job, we have lost interconnection with other people, we don't have the right feeling to continue to. We don't understand the sense of the life. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe this can be a problem, and the culture will play an important role about that.
Fabrizio, just very quickly, just a very quick answer. Of course, the solution, nobody has found it yet. We're still in the very middle of it. Some of us still have to reach the peak. So we're still really far from a solution. And this is no pressure. You don't have to have the answer yet. I didn't mean it that way. But how do you see the interaction with, for example, you have in Turin very important banking foundations that support a lot of the social and cultural. How is the dialogue with the government? Is there openness to dialogue together in finding a solution? Do you see that there is potential for this?
They are working very well. They are working very well. For example, they have also launched different call to sustain the society. And so they are working very well. And for example, now we have a big cultural hub, and they are thinking to reconvert in hospital. So they are they are working very well. They have understood very well that they can play an important role for the future of our cities. So very quick, they play very fast. So I appreciate very much
So
they
some
work on.
cultural foundations and private banking foundation can move faster, which I think brings us to our next speakers.
Violante and
Thank
Nikola,
you.
would you like
Thank you.
to say, explain us how you are dealing or what kind of initiatives you want to enroll now?
Sure. You know, we just mentioned it. I think that as a foundation, we have a sort of flexibility that allows us to take decisions quite fast. And as a foundation, we did feel the responsibility and a sense of duty to do something and to have a you know, as quick as possible response. And as I was mentioning before, I think that our, you know, our starting point was the realization of this cross-border solidarity forums that are, you know, work at many different levels, from the very local to in between member states. And so what we tried to do was to launch an activity that would support these forward-looking ideas and these new forms of solidarity, because our, you know, our stance in this is that it's precisely this solidarity that it's going to be the revival also of the sector, also to sort of give some hope to Fabrizio and what he just said. So this is why we're launching at the beginning of next week the Culture of Solidarity Fund, which will support you know, initiatives in the cultural sector. So it will support creative workers, cultural workers, artists, and civil society as a whole. Support creative ideas that really push forward an idea of solidarity in Europe. So what we're interested in is, you know, how cultural workers are working to sustain people-to-people connections despite, you know, travel limitations, but also social distancing, of course. But also, you know, real practical forms of solidarity that are shared by cultural workers. So again, it's a multiple short-term funds. They will run all over the year, and it's with tailor-made support criteria. So we're trying to be as open as possible. And this was our first solution that came to our minds, you know. So we're really trying to push for something that it's not only a, you know, package aid for the sector, but really something that can work also to find solutions and to work in the aftershocks of this moment.
Do you have specific regions in mind where you want to give the fund or spend the fund more? Because we are getting infos from several states, like in Spain and in Austria, in Czech. There are funds already given to cultural workers and artists. And there might be regions like the Balkan region or, I don't know, Turkey, Northern Africa, which don't have this state support.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, this regional question was quite important for us, but we were also in a sort of pressure to push this fund forward as quickly as possible. So because also the pandemic is having different impacts, and it's a continuity, right? It's not happening at the same time for every country. We just decided to launch an open call, and, you know, we work with grantees and partners which are very much based in the Balkan region, for example. So we're sure that, you know, this region will be tackled by this fund, but we didn't feel comfortable in already setting regional boundaries for this, just because the situation is really changing day by day. So for now, it's an open call. We will see in a second stage whether to move it to more regional specificities.
Thank you. Nikola, did you want to add anything? Did you put your hand up, or?
No, I just wanted to share with everyone that the call would be made public on April 6th. And as far as the regionalization of the call is concerned, I mean, for European Cultural Foundation, the Europe is considered in a very wide state, in a very wide context, and any initiatives supporting artists in Europe will be considered. So this is something that is not necessarily limited just and only for
EU member states, the EU 28. Okay.
Definitely not. Definitely.
And so we've posted a link on the Facebook page for anybody wanting to get into it, a little bit more information, and subscribe to, probably to the ECF newsletter to get up-to-date information when the call is open. What is the budget of the fund?
It's 1 million for 2020. So it's this is the budget that we have for now. And at the same time, I forgot to mention something that I do think it's still important, is that with the European Culture Foundation and Culture Action Europe, we're working on a mapping of initiatives that are made for the sector, which I think, you know, it seems maybe less of importance to this sort of funds, but I think that the mapping is a very important activity in this moment, to try to understand what are the needs of the sector. And I know that there are many foundations, but also very different organizations who are working on this. So this is also something that I think it's important to sustain the needs of the sector.
We will also share with you some of the links that the viewers of this channel can get more information on what are the cultural policies that are already put in place in different parts of Europe, and also to have a closer look at the European Foundation Center website, which provides an overview of the measures and actions that different foundations have undertook across Europe in addressing the COVID crisis.
So centralizing the information, that's fundamental, absolutely. So in the meantime, we see also Livia. Hi, Livia, can you hear us? So Livia, we can't hear you because maybe I have to unmute you.
She's muted.
I have to unmute you. Sorry, I have the power of muting and unmuting people. Apologies for this, and I still too much power for me. But you should be okay. You're unmuted, Livia. Can we hear you?
Can you? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So Livia was the one wishing us a happy quarantine. So, and Andrea will probably join us. Some of the other speakers, because we asked the people that sent us the video messages to join us in the debate also that we will be having now, also maybe with some comments also from the people that are following us on the Facebook stream. And because the idea is really to try and get a little bit of discussion and feedback going. One of the main issues that is coming up, Bahanur, how do you see it? I mean, it's definitely is tackling the social security and the financial precariousness of the cultural sector, which is something that has always been going on. But under this crisis, it's really evident that they were, as Marta said it from Lisbon, that they were the first ones hit. And actually, Marta couldn't join us because they had to go to the cultural center. They're doing some measures to support the sick people in the neighborhood. So this is why she couldn't join the discussion. But one of the messages that we did exchange with her, for example, was, is it possible to try and create support and create a solidarity fund? So I think she would have been very happy to hear what was said from the friends from ECF, and also the centralization of the information. But also how much, going back to also what you were saying about mapping, how much can we also make sure to sort of widespread also the information of what is happening? This is, I think the initiative from Zagreb, from Croatia, was very interesting, of really making a survey about all the creative sector and identifying, quantifying also a little bit, what is the impact that is happening right now. So I would ask also the people that are following us in the meantime to also share any additional information or comments that you might have. For example, we've been told that Santa Paula in Spain, the Cultural and Youth Council of the municipality are supporting all artists such as musicians, singers, in developing every Friday a live concert event through their Instagram pages, so to encourage youth to stay at home. Because I don't know if any of you have adolescent kids, most likely not, as probably the age range is quite young, but many people are saying it's quite tough to get the teenagers to stay in the quarantine. So that's also, I think, a nice initiative that on the one hand keeps the creative sector engaged, but also has a societal impact in trying to get the people on board. Let's see if we got also some more comments. And in the meantime, Bahanur, I don't know if you would also like to share a bit of insight, a bit of reflection also from your point of view of what emerged up to now from the main points that were discussed.
think what ECF is trying to do right now to collaborate or to collect the information should go further and be a collaboration with, because there are people, and we know some cities are not aligned with the national government. Like in Britain, there are a lot of initiatives on local level, but the collaboration or the guidance on the national level might be not in the same direction. In New York, we have the same situation. We have the same situation in Turkey. We have that in many places. It's very important to bring societies together without having these borders, these national power structures, to surpass this and collaborate, to support each other, to bring new initiatives on the way. And I think it's a big challenge for the culture sector to do culture or to be active, to be supportive, but we have to be also perceived on an international level, on a continent level, as a group of people who are active, who want to do something, who have kind of solutions, maybe little solutions, but still solutions. And we are for sure competitive enough with what we are asking for, like other sectors like tourism, or I don't know, travel agencies, or I don't know which sector of the economy will be supported as the next one. But we should be visible. We might be little communities, not so visible, and it's very important to connect, to be visible, to be able to lobby that the money, if there is a money left, goes to the people who try to take care of each other, who try to inform each other, entertain, educate each other, who really give medical support, who bring the food to the neighbors and so on. And that the money doesn't go only to saving the businesses and financial sector.
So my question would be also, now that Livia joined us, were there a few things that maybe that you felt that from the discussion, as I know you've been following us on Facebook, that you found that were quite comforting of the discussion that went on up to now?
Well, I think there's a lot, really. Like, I'm in general perhaps too much of a hopeful person. Like, optimism, I never run out of optimism, even now, which is quite dangerous. But I think there is a lot of hope and a lot of creativity going on at the moment. And from what I'm hearing is there is quite a lot of, we're opening up to possibilities a lot more than we ever have. So yes, we're talking about government schemes and funding pots, but I can also hear a lot of social possibilities being mentioned that don't necessarily have to do with, hey, we need a lot of money to do a gigantic public commission. So I think this really does open up the possibility for collaborations that go beyond the government, in a sense, beyond governmental schemes, in directions that perhaps, you know, a month ago we would have considered weird, we would have considered impossible. But so that, in a way, I guess. And we are here from different...
We must not concentrate only on the fact that we need money, which is definitely fundamental, but we also have to think about how we're going to be spending this money and ensuring that this also ensures a societal change. And this is the fantastic mission, very big responsibility that culture has in really trying to merge also what is the vision of a society. So this is something that is a big responsibility. Anikó, what is your impression from this discussion? Did you get some inputs that hopefully that you feel that you can share also with your peers in New York? Or are you going to say we're better off in Europe? They're totally desperate.
Yeah, I just see that it's, you know, it is different for the already mentioned situation that cultural funding is almost purely philanthropic in this country, which just sets a very different tone when it comes to money, culture, and art, the relation of those, and it puts the art market in a very different position. And You know, it's just going to change. I agree with I think Fabrizio mentioned this earlier, that we're gonna, after this sleeping period, we're gonna wake up to a very different world, I think, and none of us can see where culture, what kind of function or purpose culture will have in that. And I agree with you, Daniela, about that it's a great responsibility and challenge at the same time to think about basically daily, or rethink our position daily as things are changing. What could be the more sustainable structures in the future?
Yeah, Fabrizio, I'm being taken from a windstorm in the meantime. Fabrizio, what can we do as an international community to support Turin? Share with you good tips. Give you solidarity. What would you like from us? What can we do for you to help you? Good spirits, I think, is a good start, maybe.
Oh, I think that in this moment we have to defend Europe. Okay, it's very, very important that now European institutions and the European citizens feel this issue is an international problem. And that is for me the best. What I would like to see is the European institution. They work they work in the same direction, and they help us to fight this problem. And so this is, for me, this is the big issue, is to think as Europe and not as a single nation or a single city. And it can be very helpful because it is an international phenomena. And so this is the big I don't know, the big problem at the moment. And
I understand this. And in the meantime, as you're saying this, Andrea Kovac from Budapest has connected us. And and Andy, I would like you to share, even in these difficult times, some of your optimism and positivity. For example, because now that we're speaking about being a united Europe and reaching our hands out also to all our friends outside, like Anikó in New York, where New York is one of the hotspots globally now, and we try to share all our solidarity with you. We also share the solidarity also with Budapest and Hungary, that now that you're undergoing huge political challenges, and this is a moment where we're reaching our hands also to you, friends and Hungarian friends, because we know that we are all brothers and sisters here in this.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, we are here for you. You're not alone. And was there from the discussion that you heard here a couple of points that you think that give you hope for the future collaboration that you will be having?
Yeah, of course. Actually, as a freelancer, I had to survive all the time in different ways. But of course, this is the most challenging time, because now everybody has in the same situation to create all the time, new methods. And somehow I try to deal with this time as an opportunity to rethink these structures, where and how we can work, but also trying to do new things, because we can't get back to the old structures at all. And it's time for me also somehow to rethink what culture means, because it's a kind of umbrella term for me, and we have to deal with a new vocabulary maybe for it, and that's a new decade, hopefully. Is it enough optimism for you?
Thank you, Andrea. This was a fantastic optimism. So just to let you know, in the meantime, we have some new faces that are adding on. So we're going to throw a big party all together in the meantime. So we have now with us Charlotte from the Menù della Poesia, who we will be getting to you in a few minutes, because in the meantime, also Luca Bergamo joined us. Hello, Luca, who is the vice mayor of the city of Rome and the deputy mayor for culture of the city. So I don't know, I know you were in a previous meeting, so I don't know how much you managed to join the discussion or follow the discussion from before. I suppose not.
I just bumped in.
So
Sorry.
You're very welcome anyway. So being as a Roman citizen, so I'm quite happy. I won't be getting into local discussions now with you, but we were having a discussion with Fabrizio also from the city of Turin about what is the role of the public administration, how can cities help the cultural sector in this very difficult moment we're going in. And we would like to have, given your experience in Rome and your international previous experience, where do you think that the city can really reach out a hand? Some ideas came out like renting, freezing the rents for the cultural sector, or at least reducing them. Do you have some insights that you would like to share with us?
Okay, you can tackle the issue from different angles. I'll first look it from the angle of cultural policy, then I broaden it up a little bit. Let's say that we are working at a couple of different levels. One is the dialogue with the national government in order to have the measure conceived to support workers and organizations in these very difficult moments, to be accessible as well to the variety of professional profiles that we have in the cultural sector. Namely, you should consider that subsidies to workers in Italy have largely conceived to support those that are working organization, we call Cassa Integrazione, and most for those that are professional, so they have registered VAT persons. While we do estimate that around in the country there's about 170,000 individuals that work with so-called atypical working relationship, they might be excluded by the measure, the subsidies the government is deciding at the moment. So we have been working with other colleagues from the cities to, in order to have the government understand the structure of the sector and adjust the measure they had already put in place to help or to intervene in people's things. This is apparently going to happen at the moment, especially concerning two kind of things. I'm not getting into detail. And then another things that we moved ahead, we pushed is to have the government to release a fund that support individual income in a kind of generalized way for the people that had a certain level of income last year and they run out of activity now. So there's something that is very national scales, and local authorities, they have exchanges. It's mostly political level, but they can have an impact on these kind of measures that are essential. Namely because the local authorities do not have, at least in Italy, legal availability to come with income aid. So that the money we use are money that support activity, and being the activity totally stopped, that's a major challenge.
I see Fabrizio's nodding and agreeing from Turin, and also we're getting a lot of comments also on the Facebook Live, commenting also that yes, there's a lot of pressure also from people working in the cultural sector asking for a sort of minimum income of quarantine. This is something in the Italian debate is quite big, but definitely in the cultural sector, because we've seen in the discussion today, the cultural sector is one of the ones most strongly affected from this situation we're going in. But culture is so fundamental.
Consider that to have a size, the occupied people in the cultural sector in Italy is a wide culture and creative is 1.5 million individuals.
on approximately 60 million. So we were saying in the discussion also just around Europe, it depends also what you consider people working in culture. There's more than 8 million. So we're talking of not just something that is shaping the identity of our continent, but also something that is economically very, very relevant.
In Rome, the sector itself size more or less for the 10% of the global turnover of the city. So that's the dimension. At the local level, we are taking some measures that pertain the cultural field. One, impact on the funding we are giving to cultural operators to calls, releasing the condition for having access to that one, meaning that the structure we gave was to have activity in certain period of the years, while we are adopting now a decision that whoever has won the call can actually replan the activity from any moment from the emergency to the end of the year, as well without losing the right to do it for the next year, because we launched call for a triennial programs. So the
city is experiencing a lot of flexibility to try and yeah.
And that's impact on a package of 4.5 million euros, more or less, that it goes through this means. At the same time, you have to consider we have very large cultural institution perimeter, because we are member or owner of the National Theatre, the Opera House, 21 museums, exhibition places, and so on, music halls, whatever. And what we are trying to do is to guarantee that the funding we committed to give them on the basis of certain services rendered, so the activity might be given as well, even if the activity is substantially reduced. That has an impact on the occupation, but as well on their capacity to revolve that funding for use that we are pushing to be addressed to small and medium operators.
Okay.
That's in the culture. Okay.
Thank you very much.
And there's a lot of things. I mean, you can go ahead for.
No, but this is very, very, very interesting, because it fits in, and I think complements very much a lot of the discussions that were done also with the other speakers that are Anikó from New York, Livia from London, Andrea from Budapest, and we also have Fabrizio from Turin, and Violante and Nikola from the European Culture Foundation. So we're talking really, there was a lot of discussion also about how to organize, how to support the cultural sector, and also with policies, with financial means. So I think, thank you, Luca, for joining us, because I think this was giving us a lot of very interesting insights. And I think what now also is the discussion is not only about how can we help culture, but how are cultural initiatives able to help the emergency now? And this is where I would really, really be happy to invite Charlotte Barbera to say a few words from the Menù della Poesia, which we came across as a beautiful initiative, and we thought it was absolutely a fantastic closing for our session here today. So Charlotte, would you like to, maybe if you like, maybe surprise us first, and then we'll explain all the details about what the initiative is about. Yeah. So the floor is yours.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, why not? So, you are to my thoughts as food to life, or as sweet seasoned showers are to the ground. And for the peace of you I hold such a strife, as twixt a miser and his wealth is found, now proud as an enjoyer and anon, doubting the filching age will steal his treasure, now counting best to be with you alone, then better that the world may see my pleasure. Sometime all full with feasting on your sight, and by clean starved for a look, possessing or pursuing no delight save what is had, or must from you be took. Thus do I pain and surfeit day by day, or gladdening on all, or all away. And this is a sonnet written by a poetry. Yeah, I don't know, a writer. If you, I don't know if you know it. His name William Shakespeare. Okay. And first of all, I really want to thank you, Daniela, for inviting us here to your live. I am speaking as spokeswoman. I work with Mauro Bernardi, Camilla Sandri, Valeria Perdonò, and Vincenzo Zampa. We are the curators of Il Menù della Poesia, the poetry menu. If I have some minutes, I really would like briefly introduce the initiative and tell you something about our reality. Okay, thank you very much. Our project springs from a concept of the Italian actor Marco Bonadei. We began 10 years ago. We were in 3, and now we are a cultural enterprise made up of 23 professional actors. You know, everybody, unfortunately, in Italy, everywhere, but in Italy, often happens, somebody says that you can't eat culture. We don't agree. We really don't agree. So we created the menu, poetry menu, Menù della Poesia. It's a project born from a professional actors team with the aim of promoting and spreading poetry, theater, literature in places related with conviviality to nourish also the soul. In the case, restaurants are our best places, but we can do it everywhere. We really have been everywhere, from a pub to a classy restaurant, from service station on the motorway, yeah, and even to the Italian embassy in Paris for celebration of Italian Food Week in the war. So we also been abroad, and it was great. But how it works, it's very simple. Professional actors dressed as elegant waiters propose to you a menu like this. Inside is like a real menu. Inside, I don't know if you can see, you can find a list of poems, food for the soul. So you only have to choose your favorite one, make us a sign, and we will play it for you directly at the table. So we don't feed you, but we turn to your heart. So 2 years ago,
and you're doing something amazing now, right?
Yeah. We realized that we can also be the most important thing I want to say about our initiative now, a charity initiative, is that the name, it's like untranslatable because it's a play on words that means a different contagion, but also a contagion of poetry. Contagi diversi. When the emergency started, we've been thinking for a long time on what kind of contribution we could make. Artistic, but also concrete. You were talking, Daniela, a few minutes ago about responsibility that culture has. We really wanted to do something useful, something necessary, respecting our poetics. So how to maintain the intimacy that characterizes our performances, respecting the decree. We chose to explore a different way to get closer to people. We recovered the phone, such an ancient tool and intimate. So every day we publish a different menu. People can choose on our social networks or our website, and order, filling a form. Then from 6:30 to 9 p.m, our actors make the calls. We offer some poetry delivery, a poem to keep us company. And all this has another very specific goal: help with a fundraising that we activated for this project, the hospital Papa Giovanni XXIII in Bergamo, because it's, you know, one of the structures most affected here in Italy by the crisis. We started for the Poetry Week, the Poetry Day, international day, on 21 of March, and we are going on day by day. We are going on until the 9th. Next Thursday. Our goal, we played like 700 poems right now and collected 5,000 euros. And
5,000 euros in a couple of weeks. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's very,
and
very
our goal is 7,000. Let's see if we will reach it. We're going on until next Thursday. And we also have poems in English, French, Spanish, and Polish. So starting from today, thanks to you. So we will be pleased to play also for your international audience. Thank you.
Thank you for reading the poem to us, and thank you for making us part of your initiative. And this is also on the meantime on the social, you received the link and the details for making a donation. I think this is a very, very beautiful initiative from Il Menù della Poesia, and gives us also a bit of inspiration of how also we can make sure that culture has also a visible role in supporting our society as well, in different ways, among which also this beautiful crowdfunding campaign, for which you find the details to support in the link. Thank you. Bahnur, I think we're heading towards the end, and I see also little Kaira has joined us with a very, very fancy face do.
So he wanted to show his art piece, or his sister's art piece. Yeah, it was very, very informative, the talk. I'm really happy that everyone joined, and I'm also very happy about the comments on Facebook. We will try to compile an article about that, try to link everyone. Feel free to send us more topics, more contributions, and let's think about how we can work together, make us visible, and how we can ask for the same thing everywhere, and probably maybe the politicians will hear us then better. That would be my last part for today.
And I would like, before we go to saying goodbye, I would like to also invite you to the next session that will be, surprise, surprise, there's a little change in information, that it will be on Wednesday, the 8th of April at 3 o'clock. So, and we will be talking about something that is very connected to the discussion we had today, that is about community centers. So how do we, I think some of the points that get aroused today from the discussion in relation, for example, to rent freezing and supporting how the role of culture in creating social inclusion, we will be focusing specifically on the role of these spaces. So join us on Wednesday at 3 o'clock with new guests, and follow us on Facebook for the details. In the meantime, I would like to say a huge thank you to our speakers who have joined also at the end of meetings and so on, to make sure that they could also give a contribution. Thank you very, very much, all of you. And we hold your hands in distance and wish you to keep safe, all of you, and to thank you. Yes, absolutely. We share our hearts with you. And we also invite everybody that is also following us today to make sure to also share with us some of the ideas, some of the information, some of the fears. We will be writing an article with all the information that come up today in the coming days. Be patient with us, it needs a bit of post-production time, but keep following us. And a very, very big thank you also to the audience who has been very active throughout the discussion, and that's nice because it doesn't feel that we're just having the Zoom conversation amongst us, but we're reaching out also outside of the walls of our apartments to also a larger community, and this is very fundamental for us. And from my side also, a big thank you to the Eutropian and Cooperative City team, that all of them in quarantine have been making a very big effort in making sure that this event today happened. So a very big thank you to Clara, to Yilmaz, to Manuela, to Levente, to Bahanur, and to all of them. And I won't list everybody because otherwise it goes a bit long. Kaira's also clapping his hands, so I'm glad about that. This said, very, very big thank you to everybody. It was a real pleasure to have you with us. So all of you, Anikó, Violante, Fabrizio, Nikola, Livia, Charlotte, Andrea, and Luca, thank you very, very much from us for joining us today. And we look forward to keeping the discussion going because the quarantine will last still a bit of time. So we have plenty of time for having other conversations as well. Thank you so much. And we wish you all the best.